Before a disaster, we have different steps that of things that we have to go through. First of all, communication via government disaster management officials. The Court of Guardianship falls under ESF 7 and also ESF 5. And we have to be in contact with the coordinator of the ESF 7 and the coordinator of ESF 5 to make sure what the steps are to be taken before a disaster. Collaborate with stakeholders to follow up and provide support, assistance to vulnerable clients and minors in our care. We make sure before a disaster that we go through to, we have a list because every Tuesday we have open doors for our community, for the civilians who can come in and ask a question. During those conversations, we can determine if those family falls on the vulnerable list. So we list them on our list and we make sure we go through that list and have it ready before the disaster in case we can support them. Apply the inter-island protocol. We also have an inter-island protocol with Curacao, Saba, St. Eustatius, and Bonaire, and Aruba as well. If a disaster or hurricane is approaching us, before we get in contact with them and let them know, like, hey, there is a disaster or a hurricane approaching us, just get ready to receive, in any case, to receive our civilians. Next step, parents, caregiver, develop your family preparedness plan together. Before, during this season, the hurricane season, have conversations within your family, with your family members. Make sure everybody is involved, even the children, to make a decision. Discuss, for example, make a plan what their role will be. For example, if you have toddlers, make sure you pack them their knuffel, their teddy bears, a book to color, make sure they have it with them. As well, also have conversation. For example, in any case, if a disaster hit, if a hurricane hits St. Martin, to have the conversation with your children, if it might hit, that they know, for example, if the parents working in different jobs or maybe the house is damaged and the children need to travel, have the conversation beforehand to make sure if anything happen, that the children can make a decision if they want to leave the family and who they want to go to. If they want to go to a family member in Curacao or in the Netherlands, have that conversation in advance. And during the hurricane or during the disaster, parents provide comfort and support to your children. Just be there for your children because they might panicking. Talk to the children on what is going on and what might take place after passing of a storm. You need to have open conversations with your children on their level. After the communication via government disaster management officials, we as well, after a hurricane, we have to get in contact with the ESF 7 coordinator and ESF 5 coordinator again to make sure what the next step is and what our position have to be. We also will have a Court of Guardianship worker at all the exit, the border controls, just to make sure if in any case an unaccompanied minor will leave the island, that we will be there to make sure all the documents is filled out and everything is set. And we will also advise and guide. Collaborate with stakeholders to follow up and provide support assistance to vulnerable clients. Most of the time, we also receive packages from the social services. So once we receive those packages and we have our vulnerable list, we reach out to those families to just see and give them a package. That's after. Apply and monitor inter-island protocol as it relates to evacuation of minors.
Before the storm, we inform them, hey, there's something happening. A hurricane is coming our way. Be prepared, we might need to use you guys, right? That's before the storm. Now, the disaster happened, category 5, 4. Something happened, the people need to leave. So we'll inform them. Every day, actually, we see the judge of first instance, because remember, when it comes to evacuating, you're going to make a decision as a parent if it's going to be a temporary solution or if it's going to be something more than, let's say, 3 months. So now, if it's something like maybe a week or 2, you don't know what's happening, you can make a decision and check and travel and with your consent or with the father consent, depends who has custody. That is maybe a more smoother process. You do not really need the court of guardianship to go court for you. However, if you need to change, suspend your parental authority, and then somebody else need to become the legal guardian, that's when you have to have a conversation with us prior to leaving. And every morning during that time, we see the judge of first instance. So they automatically will suspend your parental authority, give the person, the aunt, the uncle, whoever receiving that child, legal custody, legal guardianship of that child, and then you receive a court decree. Most of the time in that court decree, that measure is valid between 3 to 6 months. And in that court decree, it automatically indicates that automatically after that date, your parental right will be reinstated. So that's something that's not really come back to the court of guardianship. So that is when it comes to the inter-island protocol. Also, what we would do is monitor. So we call in and check, say, hey, we have 5 children going Curacao. They go in Buena Vista, they go in Punda, they go in Arriba. Wherever they go in, we give you exactly the location, the address, phone number. So now the social worker at, let's say, Curacao would now check in with those minors to see how they're doing, how they're feeling, how they're adjusting. So then they continue to follow up, make sure the social, emotional part of that child is fine. Because maybe indeed the child was okay leaving, but maybe after a week the child's not adjusting properly and rather come back home. Because what you do not want to do is create another trauma. They already seen one, and now I don't have a mother, don't have a father. So now this aunt, I thought she was nice, but living with her is a different story. So that is when we're talking about the check-in. So they will continue monitoring that child to see if the child adjusted well or not. Okay, so that's when it comes to the inter-island protocol. And if the child doesn't feel well, then we have a conversation with the parents, say, hey, your child is going through this, how you feel like taking back the child. Because guess what? It's not only your child going through this process with the trauma, because there's so many kids are still on the island with their parents. So maybe it would be best interest if the child return home. So that would be a conversation, but ultimately the parent would have to make that decision.
We've been talking about child protection before, during, after a disaster. And we chose the title for this slide, Protecting Your Child from Themselves, because that is a very important part of child protection, actually. I'm the senior youth probation officer. That means that normally from a day-to-day basis, under normal circumstances, I am the other discipline of the Court of Guardianship, where child protection, child safety is the social worker's responsibility. My responsibility is to rehabilitate the minors who get in contact with the law. So basically, minors that make mistakes during normal circumstances. However, a disaster, in particular on St. Maarten, is usually in the form of a hurricane, is an extraordinary situation. And it's not only the minors who usually get in problems with the law, who have problems with rules and directives, who have a problem with, for instance, the curfews and the directives given nationally. So, in general, the Youth Probation Office has MOUs and agreements with the different justice stakeholders. So what does that mean? That means that every single morning or in the 72 hours in anticipation of a disaster, I have regular meetings with the prosecutor office, the police office, and other justice stakeholders. And what do we discuss? We discuss the things that matter when it comes to minors in these situations, but also the parental responsibilities. And that is actually why I want to focus on in the context of what the Court of Guardianship does. Whereabouts is the first point that I pointed out. The first image shows it. You want to know where your children are. Of course, during the disaster, during the hurricane, you would hope that your children are at home. And generally speaking, that is the easiest time probably to find them at home, because while the storm is going on, they will seek safety. But the hours leading up to the storm and the hours after the storm is usually when all the mischief happens. Of course, it's the child that does it, it's the minor that does it, the youngster, because usually you're talking then more in the age group of 10 to 18, if you take it very broadly, 12 to 18, most likely it's more a teenager thing. But the parents are the ones who are in the end responsible for every child that is a minor. So it's a very important thing to have good communication with your child. It's also almost going to give a parental course here, but if you don't have an established communication pattern with your children in which you explain them in a calm manner what the responsibilities are that you expect of them, what your responsibilities are, but also what the ramifications and what the cause and effect of every choice that they make and how that will reflect on you, especially in a situation with a disaster, the financial ramifications. If you don't explain it to them, they cannot take it into account. Because the next thing is looting. Looting never happens cleanly. Looting comes with damages. Looting comes with theft, and looting comes with a price tag. And the price tag for any minor under the age of 18 will fall on the parents. So just imagine you already having to deal with maybe the stress of not working, the stress of damages to your home, to your car, other family members who you feel you care for, and now you have the added cost of store windows, appliances or electronics missing, clothing missing, and it will fall on you. Hence, the third picture is that you will find yourself at the prosecutor office, you will find yourself by the police having to basically account for the behavior of your child. And that's why it's so important it's easy when current is still on and you can entertain your child. The parenting really starts when everything starts to fail and all normality is out the door and your child will want to leave. And that is not only the ones that are always pointed at as the difficult children or the children with challenging behavior. It's a normal thing for a child to get bored. It's also a normal thing for a child to be scared and to find other ways to distract itself. But it definitely gets scary when they start to bundle out of your sight amongst each other and they start to do other things. That's why the joint partners within the justice chain have swift justice, which is basically in Dutch called snelrecht, which means that when a child is found breaking curfew or any other directives given by the chief of police or the EOC, which means the prime minister, so that there's a national ordinance and rules. And it does happen. You find children on the road, the parents don't know about it, or the parents do know about it, or you find children on the road with parents. That happens as well. Yeah. Normally the process is you will get charged, there will be a long process of investigation, you probably first come on a pile, several months later you will get a call to come by the prosecutor either for a hearing or you will go to a court. We do not have time for that during a hurricane or any disaster. So what we do is you will get charged and basically no longer than 48 afterwards you will have a result of that charge, and 24 hours after that we will execute that charge. Meaning that in the case of minors, they will be charged, they will be processed, and no more than 72 hours later, as you can see later on, we'll probably have a lot of damages and a lot of stuff to do, and they will be doing it. Yes. They can do their community service one time. So the process of the justice just goes a lot quicker. The process of the judicial process just goes a lot quicker. Not necessarily because we can use the extra hands, but also because there's no normal office operating at that time. So in order to not get a backlog of things that happened during the disaster and to try to keep track of that, we just, through swift justice, you can actually, within the situation where they caused more problems, you can put them to work to solve some problems. So the main message for me is that If you're a social worker, if you're a parent here, if you're both, if you speak to people, if you're part of social services, advise all parents, speak to your children, have a sit-down conversation with them, talk about from before, during, and after what you expect of them. But also tell them about what the responsibilities are that you have for their behavior. The Christmases that are coming, the food that needs to come on the table, it will all end when you have a big bill. And you got to start, you can never start too young by making your children financially responsible. And this is an important aspect of it.
The documents you may need or will need is a valid passport, definitely. So that you could get, if you're a Dutch national, you could get that by the civil registry. If you're not, then you would have to go by your consulate. You need a detailed registration form as a parent. So right now, you can go right now by the civil registry or get an appointment to get it. That helps, for example, if you're a married couple, it states indicate that you married to this gentleman, which means based on our Dutch law, you automatically have joint custody. So that's basically why we're asking for a detailed registration form. Now, let's say you're not married and the child is carrying the father's last name and you have sole custody of the child. You would need a parental declaration form. Where you can get that, you would go by the courthouse and request for that letter. However, if you never register it and or they cannot find it in their database, they have another sort of document they'll give you saying, hey, this child is not registered by us in the Gezag register. However, there's certain points in the back of it, if this person not married, if the person had a child out of wedlock, not married, or there was a divorce, and in that divorce indicate that that person has full custody. So there's different pointers of why this person may have custody of this child. So that we would have to ask a certain question, and based on your answer, we would know, okay, this person maybe has sole custody, or they have joint custody. Then the last thing there is a court decree. You can get either a divorce case, or let's say a father said he wanted to get his rights as a dad and want to share custody. That means he went to court as well. So there will be a court decree. So we'll have that court decree ready as well. In that court decree, it indicates if the mother sharing custody, if the mother has sole custody. That's what we need to look at, because once you leave and passing the border, we need to know who has the decision-making person. Who is the person? Is it just the mom? Is it just the dad? Or is it just the father, both parents? Or even, let's say, if there's an aunt who became the legal guardian. Remember, that had to go through court as well. So on that court decree, we will be able then to give you a more sound advice or allow if you can leave with the child, yes or no.
What I'm trying to say in so much terms is, it is a crisis. It's a weird situation. We learned our lessons during Irma. We don't want to do it like this again. We had a problem with the military. I'm telling you, the police had a problem with the military, whereby they want to do their own thing. And we remind them, listen, you got to go at this location. No, my boss tell me I got to go there. Yeah, that's how bad it got. If this had taken place the way we wanted it, a lot of the looting that took place would have been taken care of. Again, it has gotten better. It has gotten better. With that being said, there is no correct way of doing this. It's all of us have to learn. All of us have to learn from our mistakes. And all of those who other ESFs, and I'm talking about ESF 7 in particular, which is social services, they need our help to get certain places. They need to know where the shelters are, how to get to the shelters. They need the safety of protecting the shelter, because that's also our task. But we need cooperation from the general public. I'm begging for this because I know what we went through last time. Again, I'm more interactive, so I want the questions, but I'm asking, and I'm keep repeating that this is not only our problem. Safety is also everybody else's problem. We had some issues whereby people wanted to come out during the hurricane. Literally during the hurricane. You tell them to go back home. Not even the loot itself, eh? Some of our people.
They're looking for thrill.
What are you going to do during this?
Spinning the hurricane.
What are you going to look for at that moment? That's the only thing. Remember, we nearly had somebody who nearly cut off the head. Eh? So, it is your own general safety too. Eh? And I'll close with this piece. And there's a general warning. If something happened, a hurricane is going on, and you step out of your house, and you get yourself in a predicament, you're on your own until it's passed. Eh? I will not endanger no police officer for your stupidity. So, it sounds a little hard, it sounds a little harsh, but it is something you learn the hard way.
Yeah. Who don't listen, we'll hear. Who don't listen, we'll
Must feel. So, thanks again. I'm cutting it short because, again, I'm running for another issue we are having, and everybody knows that it's about the prison, and that's another headache on its own. But I'm going to give you a chance to have the question before I leave, though, eh? Because I think I expect something
Does the police have enough?
for that. How the base stand. So we're going to ask, they're going to send a group, maybe a peloton, maybe 40, 50, 60, depends on what we ask for. The idea for them is always to close off certain intersections. Their job is, when we tell them you're going by the intersection LB Scott Road, the only one thing they got to do, tell people to go back home. You ain't passing here, go back home. So that's the idea behind it. Keeping the people off the road at that moment. Unless, they said again, you're going to work for the hospital, you're going one of those things, then you go different. And again, that most of the time you have a pass. We don't have enough, we always ask, we just get. The problem is always, when do you give the public the chance to come out? That's the issue. That line is a thin line.
Josefa,
Yep.
maybe you said it already. However, maybe it needs to be said again. Give some more practical tips that persons can take to strengthen their own against. My other thing was, so give that information as well as to let them know who their respective community police officers are. That might be also helpful.
You know, it's a question I was trying to avoid part of this when it comes to the community policing, because right now the structure of the community policing has changed. The issue is, there have a couple of us who left, including myself, who left the community policing to take another function. So about 5 years ago, I was moved from community policing to the head of communication department. My partner, Mr. Chandler, left. He went to work federal detective. So there's a couple of us who left. They did bring in a couple of new ones, but they still, when it comes to certain districts, it's not totally covered. And with that being said, there's certain district that is well covered, which is in Phillipsburg, for sure. Mr. Martis, he's the community officer, Jadewood. I see your writing, so I'm going to go a little slower. Miss Romeo is still from Middle Region area. And St. Peter's was still the issue whereby when Mr. Felix Richards left to go work in the private sector. So right now, we're trying to get Miss Leonard, who's over Dutch Quarter, to also take care of St. Peter's South Ward area. But that's what we have right now. Mr. Richardson, Miss Crispulo, and Mr. Bayrad are over the hill. So Bayrad is over Maho, Miss Crispulo is over Colby, Sean, a lady, Crispulo, Sean. Crispulo is her last name. And Sharon Richardson is over Simpson Bay area. Sharon.
So Ms. Leonard covers...
Yeah, most of the time we assist, Dutch Quarter Belvedere, and she assists right now in the St. Peter's area because there is no one, Mr. Richards, left for another job.